This is Jetting Up with B-Reich and Bryan Foti. Hello, everybody, and welcome on this nice, lovely evening from the Jetting Up studios. I am Bryan Foti, alongside with my co-host, B-Reich. B, what's going on, kid? We got another great show planned for you today.
Feeling good today, baby. Definitely going over some offense and looking forward to it.
Yeah, they say points wins games in the NFL, defense wins championships. Today, we're going to be breaking down the New York Jets offense. And again, on our off-season shows, I said the key to this season would be Sam Darnold, and he is the quarterback of this team, showing leadership, trying to make the jump from rookie neophyte to year number 2 and hoping to avoid sophomore slumps. So, B, let's just get right into it. We'll start breaking down the position groups for the New York Jets, and I guess first we'll start with the quarterback position, and obviously you start there with Sam Darnold. What are your thoughts on the second-year kid from USC?
Well, I got to be honest, Foti. I think the Jets are in kind of a bit of a golden era. I think that.
Ooh, a golden era. I haven't heard those terms in mad long.
Unfortunately, gold and Jets really, have nothing in common. But the golden era I think begins, and it's kind of that structure we talk about. We talked a little bit about during the GM portion of our last podcast. The Jets kind of have 2 or 3 years with a rookie quarterback who's very talented to kind of make a run and this is kind of their opportunity. You saw this previously with Sanchez. The Jets really got cooking. They had a good quality team. They had a young quarterback who didn't make a lot of money, and that allows you to kind of make a run. And you could see it in multiple teams have tried to do it this way, and the Jets kind of have their opportunity. Now, Darnold coming into his second year, 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions last year, 57% completion percentage. And a little, about 2,800 yards. So you look for those numbers to kind of take a jump. I'm hoping Sam is kind of in the 25 touchdown range and hopefully cuts those interceptions. Hopefully in single digits, you hope, but it's all going to be how the league adjusts to him and he makes the adjustment.
Yeah, this is going to be a big year for Darnold going into his second year. Like you said, he had the 17 touchdown passes last year. What I really was impressed by at the end of the season last year with those 4 games, winning in Buffalo and then coming back strong in that Houston Texans game, even though they lost, and then especially in that Green Bay Packers loss where he brought the team back, had them actually up by 15 points at one point in that game. And for Sam, it's just really about maturing and learning the offense now with Adam Gase coming in here, learning a whole new offense in his second year. It's always tough. But this is the type of guy that I think you can do that to because he has talent. And last year, you were just looking to see. You weren't expecting perfection out of the kid. You just wanted to see enough to know and be like, hey, this guy is the guy for the years to come. And I think the New York Jets have that in the future with Sam Darnold. I think he's the guy to lead this team to a Super Bowl trophy, to a Lombardi trophy, and hopefully bring it home. But, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs, hopefully a lot more ups this year because now in year 2, some of the mistakes that you make as a rookie, you really don't want to be seeing the same mistakes in year number 2. So for Sam, it's more about just really, learning from what happened last year and correcting it. They improved the team a lot. They gave him a lot of weapons, and now it's time to take the offense, learn it, and throw some points up on the board and start winning some football games.
Absolutely. Like you said, and you could tell, we really like Sam. He's got a lot of moxie. He's a tough player. And, I really think he takes that jump in year 2. And, the Jets have a quality backup here. Trevor Siemian in his 5th year in the league. Career completion percentage, a touch under 60. Nice quality backup. Knows Gase's system, and I think he'll be a quality backup. In regards to their third string, I know they're looking at the kid Davis Webb from Cal, and he was drafted by the Giants, and they're also looking at a guy, Luke Folk, who was, in an air raid offense at Washington State. Both guys, fighting for that third string, maybe practice squad.
Yeah, and Folk also last year, however, Folk was under Adam Gase in Miami, so a guy that they bring in, he's familiar with that system. So, if you like preseason training camp battles to see who that third quarterback will be between Davis Webb, the ex-Giant, and Luke Falk for the New York Jets, that might be something that you'll see in a couple preseason games. But you mentioned Simeon. I like that signing, too. A couple of years ago when he was with Denver, he was inserted into the starting lineup and played pretty well. So God forbid Darnold gets hurt. That would be worst case scenario for the Jets. He can maybe steer the ship for a game or so. But if Sam's out for a long period of time, it's going to be a rough season for the Jets because, number one, they don't have, I don't think, the talent at the backup and third string positions to overcome or the skill set around them to really make that much if you lose a quarterback. But number two, you want to see this kid grow and develop. So, again, it's still in that developmental stage for Darnold. So moving forward, we'll go to the running back position. The Jets obviously added Le'Veon Bell in the offseason. They also brought in, we didn't touch on it in our free agency show, but another under the rating signing was Ty Montgomery. They brought over the former Packer. So those are their two running backs right now. I really like Bell. We talked about it last week. I think he's going to have potentially a 2,000-yard season. He's going to be fresh with the year off. He's one of the best backs in football. He can run, catch, do it all. Bell's just the type of guy that I think is going to make Darnold's life so much easier because when he's in trouble, he can dump it off to him. He can give it to him. He can make plays. He can block. He can pick up the blitz. I mean, the guy's an all-around back, and, I love this signing for the New York Jets, and I just think he's going to make that offense. His running style's a little different than most running backs with the patience and the vision, but he's got excellent vision. The line will, I'm sure, adapt to him as they go through training camp, and he's going to adapt to them. But once they get clicking, I think this guy's really going to have a lot of success. I think you're going to see the fresh legs on him, and I talked about Montgomery before, another guy you could plug in there. He was a receiver as well before he got converted to running back, so kind of a hybrid type that you can throw or run it with him, give Bell a break, and if Darnold needs a check down, he's a guy, I'm not sure what his blocking is like, but as a receiver, but he's a big guy at 6 foot, and, he makes some plays, too, in the backfield. What are your thoughts on the running backs, B?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got our first legit running back since Curtis Martin, pretty much. A guy who can do it all. I mean, you pretty much, hit the nail on the head. He's going to be fresh. Honestly, he probably is the best wide receiver on this team as well. I mean, could line up outside. Could probably take multiple linebackers, one-on-one. Could, create some space there. And, like you said, you have your prediction, 2,000 yards. I think it might be a little too
2K,
much.
baby. I'm saying it right now. 2K for 26. Let's go.
You gotta love it.
2K for 26. I'll say it again.
And you brought up Montgomery, a quality back from Green Bay. Another playmaker. They could kind of line him up in a slot. He's another guy who loves to catch the ball out of the backfield. And then, third string is they still got Elijah McGuire. Another quality back that they're leaning on, and they think he could actually contribute with Montgomery and kind of carve out a little three-headed monster that they could use.
Yeah, I like McGuire a lot. I'm not sure what Adam Gase views him because they signed Bell, and then if you remember, they brought in Montgomery right after that to be the second string back. He was hurt last year, Eli McGuire. So we'll see what they have in the cards with the new coaching staff and everything. But I like the way he runs. He runs hard. He's a young kid. He's 25 now, but I mean, he's still coming into his third year in the league. Not a lot of experience, but I still think he can be a playmaker on this team if they give him the right opportunities. But obviously, with Le'Veon Bell as the focal point of the offense now, he's probably not going to see too many touches. But as a spell player, he's a good little back to have and to come in late in games, change the pace, different style of running. So for the Jets, I actually like their running back group. I think it's the most depth that they probably have on this entire offense. A lot of people don't really like the receiving core, but I think the running back group is a depth group, and overall they've got pretty good players there.
Yeah, it can do a little bit of everything. Now, as we start to shift and we move to the wide receivers, I got to be honest, I think this group has a bunch of B's and no A's. I think Robbie's a 2. I think Q is kind of like a little bit of a hybrid tight end wideout. And I think Crowder's a pretty solid slot. But I just don't see any alphas in here. I just think, Robbie's route tree is really a lot of flies and a lot of quick stuff. And he doesn't really have a lot of those secondary break moves. And, he's got to show an ability to really not only separate over the top for Sam, but really beat his guy, on a consistent basis and be that number one receiver. especially with a contract year coming into his fourth season out of Temple. Q last year started off pretty well and then, got injured, had 38 catches for 450 yards and only one touchdown. And, off a season like that, gets $9 million from the Jets. And, honestly, Jamison Crowder's the same kind of thing. An exciting guy. A lot of people love him in the slot. Only 29 catches, 380 yards, and 2 touchdowns last year. So, a group that I think needs to step up, a group that I think, does have some ability. I know they signed the kid Bellamy, Josh Bellamy, to be a kind of a special teamer. And they still have the guy Sharon Peake, Deontay Burnett, kind of fighting for those last 10 spots. But what do you think of the wide receiver core?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I really think they do need to improve on this group coming up in the offseason. They really didn't do much this offseason besides re-signing a number one, tendering Robbie Anderson. They bring in Jamison Crowder, which is a slot receiver. I talked about that. I like the move. He's a young guy, but, he doesn't stay healthy. And he's got to be able to be on the field and gain a chemistry with Darnold. He's a good slot player, but when you look at Robbie Anderson and Quincy Enunwa, they just extended him. Enunwa makes plays, but I'm with you on that. I'm not as high on Robbie Anderson as a lot of people in the Jets world or a lot of Jet fans like him. I don't know what you think, but he's run one route in his career, the fly, the go pattern, the deep vertical routes. This year, I'm looking for him to have a big year because Adam Gase has said that he's going to make him a big part of his offense. So let's see if he can go over the middle. He's got that slight frame. You never really see him going over the middle. But if he wants to be paid like a top receiver and he's coming up on a contract year, this would be a great year to show your skills instead of running one route. And he expressed that in the past. Last year he was complaining about Todd Bowles and the Jets offense and Jeremy Bates not really utilizing his full skill set. So I'm really interested to see what Adam Gase does with this guy. Now, I don't think he's a true number one, but, with the new, that's why I'm kind of, I like this new offensive coaching staff because I'm interested to see. We haven't really seen the full potential of these players yet, and especially for a guy like Robbie Anderson. I know Quincy Enunwa makes plays, but Robbie Anderson is the guy I'm really looking at this year to see what he can do with the football and see if he can get open and see what combination of routes he runs and if he can get open, go over the middle, and make the tough catches in traffic. Because if he can do that and have that speed, it's a whole different ball game, and it's a whole different way people are going to defend the Jets this year because you're only really looking at him as a one-trick pony right now. But if he develops and he says he has other routes, and the Jets plan to do that, so I'm interested to see in training camp and in the preseason how they utilize Robbie Anderson this year because it's going to be fascinating to me to see what he does as far as progressing from, his final year of his contract. So I'm curious to see. That's the one guy I'll look at. But like you said, Bri, a lot of number twos on this team. No true number one. And I think that's a problem for this year as they want to try to make the playoffs. But that's why I think Le'Veon Bell, you mentioned it before, he's probably the best receiver on the Jets. He takes so much pressure off of you. But, as far as the wide receiver group itself goes, they're okay. They're average, but they're not spectacular, and that's where you're going to look to see Sam Darnold also make that jump to make these guys a little bit better and bring out the best in their potential. So that's my take on the receivers. Moving forward, I guess we'll hit on the tight ends before we get into the O-line. We talked about this a little bit. They had Chris Herndon last year in the 4th round, and they draft Wesco from West Virginia. Those are the two guys. Herndon, a 4-game suspension to start the year. I know, Bri, it's going to be tough because that position, he caught the ball well, but, the tight end group, it could be very well with Herndon if he makes the jump from year 1 to year 2. He's got potential, but I'm not entirely sold just on him either. What are your thoughts on Chris Herndon and Trevon Wesco out of West Virginia?
Yeah, definitely one of the weaker position groups, I would say, on the Jets roster if I had to. I thought Herndon did a nice job last year. I thought he was a pleasant surprise, but when you watch the tape last year and you watch the games, he caught a lot of touchdowns late in the games, kind of when the Jets would be out of it a little bit. He tended to make more plays when the game got out of hand. But, hopefully he can take that next step in year 2. Pretty good route runner, reliable hands. I mean, the suspension for the first 4 games kills them, especially with, you mentioned Wesco and their other 2 guys on the roster, Tomlinson and Nate Sterling, have a combined 30 catches in their entire career. So the Jets aren't bringing much experience to this tight end group. I could maybe see them adding a veteran to this group possibly to help out those first couple games. But, after that, I think Herndon will, get back into form and try and crack, the top half of the league in the tight end spot.
Yeah, when he comes back, that's going to be the key to me. When he comes back, that 4-game suspension really does hurt the Jets because early on in the schedule, they've got a couple games that they could win and probably use them. Those first 2 games against Buffalo and Cleveland are going to be huge to this team's success. And, at the end of the season, I talked about Sam Darnold looking sharp. A lot of his security blankets were to Chris Herndon. He had a touchdown catch in that Packer game. He made some nice catches in the Houston Texan game, and also early in the season, after he dropped that pass on opening day against the Dolphins where it was wide open, he really rebounded nicely and made some plays. But again, he's got to be able to block a little bit better, and I think he will. I mean, I think he's a solid tight end, but, I'm not going to put the guy in the Hall of Fame after 1 year, and especially with a 4-game suspension, you just got to prove it to me a little more going into year 2. And I think the rookie out of West Virginia is going to have an impact. They have Neil Sterling, and like you said, Tomlinson. Neil Sterling good in the preseason, but I really don't see him much as a player in the NFL moving forward. So it's really on the 2 guys, Herndon and Wesco, and, a lot of unpro, especially with Wesco. We have no idea what this kid's going to be because West Virginia never threw to him, and Mike McCagnon took him in the 4th round, so there's a lot of expectations. Herndon was a 4th-round pick, so amongst Jet fans, you know how we are. We expect things. Another 4th-round tight end, he might be pretty good, just like last year. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. Like you said, a little bit of a weaker position for New York, but, with the running backs and the receivers being all pretty much average, like solid Bs, I don't think it's going to hurt them too much. And again, Darnold, I think, can make these guys a little bit better if he's protected. And that leads us to the big question where, I really think the Jets dropped the ball on this, the offensive line. I know they got big KO, Osemele, last week, but
32nd in rushing last year.
Well, that's going to change because of Le'Veon Bell. But I know a lot of it is because of
the
blocking.
Offensive line grades.
Oh, here we go. I see that look.
In rushing.
Here we go. Let him go. He's going to kill him. He's going to kill him. Get ready, Jeff fans.
I have to be honest. This group is not good. I mean, Beachum, I think, is average. I know it's his 8th year, 30 years old. Not. Even though I'm not the biggest fan, he's probably the 2nd best lineman on this whole line. So he's okay. I think Osemele, I think he's great. Former All-Pro, traded him for, a middle round pick. I thought that was a great trade. I think he's an anchor. I think he's tough. I like everything about him. And I think he could potentially be a Pro Bowler. Now that's the left side. Now we get to the right side. Brandon Shell, kind of hit or miss, very inconsistent in his 4th year out of South Carolina. Big question mark. What are your thoughts on Shell?
Brandon Shell, he's average to me. He's not spectacular. I don't think he's terrible. I think he can do a serviceable job there. I know he's going into the final year of his rookie deal. I have a little more confidence in him. He was Art Shell's grandson. So, I think his pedigree is pretty good. And I really feel that he's not the worst player in the world. But the guy I really don't like is Winters. Brian Winters there as the right guard. And he's been shaky since, they drafted him in the 3rd round a couple years back, and he hasn't really improved. And, it's just, McCagnon just never took all linemen. And that's the reason this guy still has a job, is because they drafted him in the 3rd round. I think John Izek, that was one of his picks, right? Winters?
I know Winters at a Kent State in his 8th year.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely either a Tannenbaum or Idzik pick 8 years ago. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in the league a long time, and he's
had a brief stint with the Bears, and then decided to crawl back to the Jets.
Yeah, I love it. These teams, they go from losers to losers.
Yeah, so Winters does not grade well. Definitely one of the weaker spots of the offense, and they really swung and missed, like we talked about in the free agent show. Foti, they did not address the center position. They had 2 top 5 centers in the market. They had plenty of cap room to spend on these guys. They even brought in the guy Paradis. They had him in. he knew, had a relationship with Gase, and they just couldn't get it done. So instead, they bring in the guy who replaced Spencer Long, who was a disaster last year, and Harrison, an okay guy, but this group is not good. The Jets have been good in the past with a great O-line, and besides Osemele, I couldn't even tell you that any of these guys are really good.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Jonathan Harrison played good last year, filling in for Spencer Long, but same thing. People forget this too. When Damian Woody went out in 2010, Wayne Hunter stepped into the AFC Championship game and performed well in the playoffs for the Jets. And then everybody remembers in 2011 they don't bring Woody back. He retires. Oh, they're all right. The guy was a turnstile and got Sanchez clobbered, and they could never protect him, and that really lost his confidence. So, how do we know Jonathan Harrison? He played well last year in a spot role, but now where teams have got tape on him preparing, they'll discover weaknesses in the guy, and that's going to be up to the coaching staff and probably the next new GM to maybe fill. And there's really not much out there still. I mean, we talked about it. John Sullivan of the Rams is still possibly an option to bring in. But again, this center position to me is the scariest position because that's the guy that snaps the ball to Darnold, calls out the signals on the offensive line. Darnold's going to have to learn that because if he's not on the same page, he's going to be running for his life, and that's not going to be good for his development or for his confidence. So this is the group that I'm a little disappointed that Mike McCagnon, when he was still here, and maybe one of the reasons he's no longer here.
Probably the reason he's fired.
He failed to address the O-line, and I know they got KO from the Raiders. He's a stud. The left side, I like Beachum a lot. He's pretty good. So I'm confident that the left side will be protected, but from the center to the whole right side of the line, Shell's just, he's a C+ to me, maybe B-. And Winters I'm not high on. He's like a C. And, Harrison played to a B level last year, but the Jets were in meaningless games at the end of the season. And, they protected him a little bit better. But, again, going forward this year, they needed to really solidify this offensive line for this kid.
And they had an opportunity to.
And they did. They had guys
to make an elite O-line.
Yeah, they had an opportunity with the money, and they chose not to. They didn't address it in the draft. They drafted Schumann in the 3rd round. We said he's more of a backup for this guy this year in a tackle. So they're going to have to, either in the training camp when cuts come down, maybe sign somebody, or they're going to have to go in, and Adam Gase is probably going to be holding his breath because I think that was one of the disagreements that he had with McCagnon was over the offensive line. And, this is just an issue for me going into the season because I think they could be good if they get confidence and they start playing well. You never know with football. They have opportunities to maybe grow and learn as a unit, and they are pretty young. They've got Beachum, who's a veteran, and Winters is a veteran, but the rest of them are, not terribly old. And Shell's 25. You got KO, who's 30. So it's a veteran group, but, again, their skill level just isn't spectacular to me. But, Osemele is definitely a guy that I think makes the unit a lot better than it was last year. I thought they were terrible last year. And, they improved it a little bit with adding KO from Oakland. And we'll see what they do this year. But, again, I'm not really bullish on the Jets' offensive line. So I'm a little nervous about that. But, that's pretty much the offensive position groups. I guess we wanted to touch what your predictions were for the offense as a whole this year. Can they put up enough points to keep the Jets in games and win football games this year? That's the big question.
Yeah, definitely a good question, because the defense is close to the level where they needed to. And, the offense last year was very underwhelming and very poor. And I think it, led to the coaching change and the new OC, and it's a whole new system. So, you try and have a little faith in Gase. I think this is the one aspect that I actually trust him a little bit in, is an offensive game plan and a philosophy. But, I think they need to improve on, their scoring points per game was only 20.8. Tough to week in and week out expect your defense to, hold these offenses under 3 touchdowns. Very difficult.
Yeah, and especially with the cornerback depth that the Jets have this year, and no pass, they're gonna need to score points this year.
Absolutely.
Now, I think they definitely have the skill pieces around Sam Darnold this year to be a productive offense. And if the O-line could just block and do their part and maybe step up and maybe finally give us Jet fans a break, if we could step up and give the Jet fans a break there, I'm feeling pretty confident with this group. and the skill position players going forward, because the addition of Bell, the addition of Crowder, I really think they could put points up, but again, it's going to be all about the offensive line.
Yeah, it's definitely all about the offensive line. I think if the unit could improve, if the unit could be, I'm not going to be unrealistic. If they can kind of get into that, 22 to 17 range and start to navigate toward the top of the NFL, kind of take that next step, I think the Jets could have a fantastic season. But, if they kind of go back to what they did last year, Shell doesn't step up, Winter stays the same, and Harrison doesn't, step up his game with Assembly next to him, I think that, this team is going to struggle this year, especially Darnold.
Yeah, and that's definitely not going to be a thing that we want going forward. We really need Sam Darnold to really hit it off this year, really improve in year number 2, because New York is a tough place to play. If the Jets really have a down year, fans are going to start saying stuff. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the kid, so they need to protect him. He has the skill pieces to do it. I think, I'm a little down on the O-line, but I think they'll do enough, hopefully, to at least keep Darnold moving in the right direction going forward, and at least give the fan base a glimmer of hope going forward, because that's the whole key to the season, again, is the improvement and the growth and maturity of Sam Darnold. But we're running out of time. It's that time again. It's an offensive edition of the 2-minute drill. All right, B, it's the 2-minute drill. We've got questions. Fire away.
I brought it up earlier. Do you think Sam Darnold could get 25 touchdown passes this year?
Yes, 100% I do. I think he's got the offensive coach. I think they're going to really put him in position this year. Like you mentioned before, Gase with the game plan, I think he's going to put him in position to say, young fella, you're going to throw touchdown. I think they'll be aggressive. I think you'll see a lot more of an aggressive offense than what Jeremy Bates ran last year. I think you'll see them throwing the ball a lot. I think you'll see Sam Darnold getting some quick throws. I think you'll see him going down the field, and especially in the red zone, I think he'll find some good matchups, especially with Le'Veon Bell. You could put him on a linebacker. Chris Herndon down there, he's a big target. He'll find ways. Quincy Nunn was another big guy you could use down in the slot or blind him outside. Get mismatches to find ways to get number 14 some touchdown passes, and I think he'll throw 25 this year. I do. My question for you, Bryan, is regarding Le'Veon Bell. We touched on it. Is he the difference maker that the Jets offense needs for the 2019 season?
I honestly think that if the Jets are going to be good this year, I think Le'Veon Bell is going to be the reason why. I think he definitely is a difference maker. I touched on it before. I think he's the best back we've had since Curtis Martin. Can catch the ball, very patient behind the O-line, which could actually let the O-line improve, knowing that it's more of a different style and they kind of let the play develop, and he feeds off the way you block. So I definitely think he is that player for the Jets. My final question to you is, do the Jets have any Pro Bowlers on offense? And if so, how many?
I do think they do. They definitely have one in Le'Veon Bell. And I'm going to say, go on a limb here, I'm going to say Sam Darnold in year number 2 makes the Pro Bowl in his second year. I think he's going to be poised for a good year. I think the O-line will step up a little bit and give us a surprise. I think he makes the Pro Bowl in year number 2. And then I'll say the third one will be one of the members of the O-line. I think Assembly has a bounce-back year to protect, and he'll get in there as well. So 3 Pro Bowlers on the offense for the New York Jets. And my final question for you, Bryan, is the offensive line, I know we talked about it, you know my opinion, do they step up enough to keep Darnold upright this year?
Honestly, I know I'm going to hurt your feelings a little bit, but I think that the O-line struggles this year. I kind of think unless they make a move here for a center or possibly upgrade the right guard, I honestly think that they are a little bit of a hindrance on our boy Sam. I think Sam could have a good year. I think he could grow, but I don't think we'll see his full potential in year 2 with this kind of O-line.
All right, there you have it. That's another edition of the Jetting Up Podcast with B-Reich and B-Foti. Be sure to tune in to us next time as we preview the defense and go over the defensive positions. So for now, everybody, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good evening.